Can you tell us a little bit more about some of the concepts or unconscious habits or patterns that may be holding people back, and how people can sort of play around with that and maybe make adjustments or do things differently?
Basically, if you think about who we are as humans, we're pattern matching and meaning making machines. That's what we were designed to do. And the main design goal was to survive. I'm talking about ancient humans and things like that. But in the grand scheme of things, we're not that far from those humans, right? So we are constantly matching patterns and saying basically, often, what's the threat? What's the thing that could get me? Is that orange and black thing in the bushes? Is that a tiger? Well, if I can match that pattern faster and get 2 steps ahead, I have more likely chances of surviving than if I what is that thing in the bushes? And go look and I have to figure it out, right? So matching a pattern and making meaning of it, in particular, good, bad, survival, or hey, this could be good. This could be food or pleasurable, right? Since that's who we are, we make these patterns for ourselves all the time. And particularly early in life, we learn patterns of how to navigate the world. The problem is that the modern day world has a lot of stimulus and input that can throw us into that survival state, that fight, flight, freeze state very easily, because we feel like our survival's at risk because that's what we're geared to feel about, like what are the threats. But it's really just like, oh, maybe we're feeling rejected, or oh, maybe we feel like we made a mistake or something like that. But it's not a mistake that's going to get us killed. It's just a mistake that is, we have to correct or something later. It's a simple thing. So if you understand that that's what's happening, that we have all these patterns and they're mostly unconscious, or barely conscious. And so then you start to think, well, okay, what are the patterns that are serving me and what are the patterns that aren't? And typically in leadership, there are patterns that served us well most of our life, but as we move up in leadership, they don't always serve as well. If we can kind of understand what is it that I'm doing, what's the motivation, what's the pattern that's happening here that is potentially limiting me, holding me back. Some people talk about limiting beliefs. That's sort of another way of talking about it. But that's what I mean by the pattern matching.
Absolutely. And as you were sharing that, I was kind of taking stock because the part that really resonates is, there are certain things that serve you, and then there's a certain point where they don't. And then becoming aware probably of that moment where they're no longer serving you, to me seems like that's the hard part. And that if I've been operating in a certain way that has helped me achieve certain results or something like that, then understanding the moment where I need to make a change or an evolution seems to be the tricky part.
And actually, sometimes it's what it is people think often when we're getting into this, that's like, oh, I need to get rid of that pattern, or I need to break that pattern, or whatever. But no, it's often most everything has its advantages and disadvantages. In certain situations, it's an advantage. In others, it's a disadvantage. So the way I like to think about it is, if you have those old style painters palettes with different colors on it, like Michelangelo might have used or something like that, and they have the different colors. There's two things you're trying to do. One is you typically have your go-to colors. Like something happens, you get a stimulus, somebody says something you don't like, and then you react maybe angrily. Well, you're going to your red, and you have your sort of pattern of colors that you use, patterns of behavior. One thing you're trying to do is have more freedom and choice of which to choose. So instead of just like, oh, somebody said something I don't like, I'm getting angry, it's like, well, maybe that person was not in a great place. Maybe I need to go to something other than anger. Maybe I need to go to understanding and compassion. Oh, I have a choice. Well, you don't even know you have a choice unless you know you have a pattern. So first you get aware of pattern, then you can practice other choices. And then the other thing you can do is you can get more colors on the palette. Like sometimes we have a limited set of colors, but we actually there are more opportunities. Somebody who's introverted, well, maybe they can find their voice. Oh, that's a new color. Somebody who doesn't actually get angry maybe needs to find a little bit of anger to bring in, to bring a little of that energy and forcefulness in.